Welcome, everybody, to yet another Tuesday edition of our social distance learning series. Tonight, the bench doctor, Mr. Scott Richardson, is going to touch up some bluing on some old guns. Something he's been trying to do. We just lost his video. Something he's been trying to do for, I think, 3 or 4 weeks now. And we keep having small issues and technical issues, which seem to be recurring. So I'll ask everybody's patience while we wait for Scott to get his video back. If you're on the Zoom, there it is. The video is back. If you're on the Zoom, put your questions in the Zoom. If you're watching us on Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, and I think that's it, we'll try to get to your questions, but the best way to get your questions answered is to either sign up for the Zoom and then join it, which you can still do, I believe. So you can go out to our website, membership.theliberalgunclub.com, click on events and sign up for this event tonight, and then jump into the Zoom, and then you can get your questions answered. Or the next best place to ask questions is our members-only Discord server, which does indeed require you to be a member. And then you join the live stream questions channel and ask your questions there. Tonight I am assisted by Danielle and Lonnie, who will be collecting your questions in chat and finding the appropriate places to interrupt Scott as he does stuff. And I think his video is frozen again, unless my video. Oh, there you go. Never mind. He was just being really still. Stealth. You know what? Scott, I think that covers everything. Danny or Alani, did I miss anything?
No, you got it.
I think I got everything.
You're getting good at this a year in.
Not at all.
A year and a half into it, I'm getting good at it. Scott, we lost your video again. All right, there you go. Stop touching that cable.
I know.
All right. Well, on that note, Scott, it is all yours.
Okay. Well, this is something that I get asked a lot about this. It's just touching up bluing on old guns. And this isn't what I would do to re-blue a gun. If I were going to re-blue a gun, that's a completely different conversation. But this is to, take care of the nicks and dings you get from just everyday usage and, the chatter from the inside the safe and things like that, or a little bit of surface rust. Like this gun right here has a little bit of surface rust right there. So it's going to be to remove that and then try to blend in a little bit of bluing to cover it up and just make it look better and give it a little bit of protection. This isn't the same as re-bluing, which would mean either doing a rust bluing process, which means, stripping the gun down completely and then sanding it and getting all the old finish off of it and prepping all of the metal and, going through the whole rust bluing process. I did a series of videos on that procedure. They're out there on the club's YouTube page. I think there's like 7. It's broken up into 7 videos on an old Colt revolver that I had. I rust blued it. You can also use a hot bluing method using bluing salts, but that requires some tanks and some, you got to get the bluing salts and you got to mix it right. The temperature's got to be perfect. But, the metal prep is the same as the rust bluing, and then you drop it in there and go through the whole sequence. But this is cold bluing, and this is just for touching up. I tried to do a gun years ago. Re-blew it with cold blowing, and it just looked terrible. You just can't really get it to blend in very well. It looks really blotchy, and I'm sure there are people that can do it. It didn't work well for me, so I've never pursued cold blowing an entire gun since. But I thought I'd show you what I do when this is an old surplus revolver. It's pretty beat up. It's seen some better days, but there's some surface rust here, some holster bluing loss at the tip, surface rust over here. There's this drag line where the cylinder lock drags. So I figured I'd touch that up. And then on this gun, there's some bluing loss up here, holster wear. a drag line there. There's a little bit of a holster wear right here where that's shiny. So I figured I'd just go through and kind of clean those up. And oh, there's a scratch right there, and show you how I do it. So notice.
Uh-oh.
Just lost your audio.
Video too, it looks like.
No, got video.
Oh.
Now
Yeah,
it's
there
gone.
it goes.
There, now it's back. Still can't hear you, Scott.
Well, everybody, while we wait for Scott to correct his video, if you've got questions, I see somebody's already
How about
asked
now?
a question. There we go.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with this thing. But you'll notice the gun is unloaded. I don't have any live ammo on the bench. First things first, check it, see, completely unloaded. So what I do is I get a piece of the finest, like 000 steel wool, or brass wool if you can find it. I'll use the steel wool because that's easier to get. But brass wool or copper works really well because it's softer and it won't remove a whole bunch of old bluing. But the super fine steel wool works pretty well as well. You just don't want to sand or scrub too hard with this stuff. So I take it and I soak it in acetone and let it dry because it removes all of the oil that is on this stuff when it's new. It's got a little bit of machine oil or something on it. So I just throw it in a plastic dish like this and soak it for a minute or two and then dry it out and let it dry. And then it's ready. You're not going to be putting any oil back onto the gun. And that's the important thing. The best results with this sort of cold bluing is getting the metal really clean. You've got to remove all the old oil, grease, gun cleaner, all that stuff. You've got to get that all off of there. So I use naphtha is my preferred degreaser. Just a can of naphtha from Ace Hardware. You can also use something like rubbing alcohol or acetone works pretty well. Just beware of smells and chemical odors. You might want to have some ventilation while you do it because it can get pretty stinky. And then also I recommend wearing gloves because you don't want to transfer any oils from your hand to the clean metal that you've just put all the work into cleaning. So I'm going to go ahead and put on a set of gloves, and I'm going to prep the barrel of this old Smith & Wesson first. This is an old Model 10 Smith & Wesson 38 Special. Made millions of them. They're great, rugged old workhorses. They're easy to fix. Parts are readily available. So if you find one for a good price, they're really a great value. They're really good old guns. This one, the hammer's been bobbed just a little bit. It's a little shorter than normal. But so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my naphtha and I'm going to get a couple of patches. This is just regular old cotton gun cleaning patches. And I wipe everything down with that. And this stuff evaporates pretty quickly. But you can see it's removing some of that surface rust. Just rubbing it with the naphtha. But you want to be super careful about getting this thing clean. You don't want any oils on it at all because it will make your finished product look blotchy. So I'm going to do the barrel first, but I want to get everything clean as possible here. Get a good naphtha buzz going. So now you can see it's removed quite a bit of surface rust and dirt. So now I want to get all that surface rust off. I'm going to take a little bit of naphtha and a little bit of brass or steel wool here, and I'm just going to scrub it very lightly because all I'm trying to do is remove the rust. I don't want to remove any of the good bluing there. So I'm just going to scrub it down, get all that rust off. You know, if you did this with a coarser steel wool, it's just going to strip the barrel of all of the old finish, and we don't want to do that. I like to preserve this stuff as much as I can. This works well for scratches too. If you have a scratch or a gouge, this method works pretty well. So once that's been scrubbed and there's no visible surface rust on there, I'm going to dry it with some fresh, clean patches. You know, I'll show you the different products that I've used and give you the results here. But so what you mostly find is this stuff, this Perma Blue from Birchwood Casey. I haven't had really good results with this stuff. It works okay if that's what you've got. But Brownells sells a couple of other good cold bluing chemicals. Dicropan, this stuff works okay. But the one I use the most, that I get the best results with, is this Oxbow Blue. You know, this is pretty good stuff. And I get it at Brownells. And this is just a little 4-ounce container of it, but it goes a long, long way. So I'll be using the Oxbow Blue. So once that's really good and dry and dirt-free, I don't know if you can see that. Oh, come on. Why is this doing this? I don't know why that keeps turning off. But I don't know if you can see the barrel. The lighting is pretty bad, but there's bare metal right here on both sides, and it's nice and clean. So what I do, the little trick that helps me the most, this is just a little torch. They use them for cooking, but it puts out a nice hot flame and a very fine point, so it makes it easy to get the heat just where I want it. And I preheat the metal a little bit, and it helps the bluing. I don't know if it helps it bond better or penetrate better, but I read the tips somewhere online years ago, and it works really well. So you just want to get it warm. We're not trying to heat this thing up glowing hot, and we don't want to do any damage, but it just preheat it a little bit. And this will also dry off any solvent that we have. So once that's done, I'm going to take a Q-tip, and I forgot one thing. I want to get a little container here. Let me find a little container here. And so I don't like to take the bluing directly from the bottle and apply it, because you're going to end up dipping your Q-tip back in the same and kind of contaminating the thing. So I would suggest taking your bluing chemical, put it in another container like so. So when I double dip, I'm double dipping back into this small sample instead of into the main jar. So I'm going to go ahead and reheat that since I wandered off. Get it a little bit warm. You got to be careful with the torch. Like I said, you don't want to damage anything. Okay, what's that?
What kind of torch is that?
It's just a little. I picked it up. I think it's for cooking. I don't know the name of it. It's just a little butane thing. So I dipped my Q-tip in there, and then I'm just going to apply my bluing in even strokes, and I'm not going to overlap it.
I'm going to center the screen there.
Yeah.
There you go.
I'm just going to do even strokes, like so. And they'll let it set. You let it set for about a minute. Okay. And then you can take your clean steel wool and you just kind of knock it off. It creates a little bit of a coating on there once it dries. And then you just kind of knock it off. And you just keep doing this until you get the color you like. So I'll keep applying another.
The Q-tip's yellowed. Is that the rust? What's that? Well, no, the one that you used before.
What about it?
When you ran it over the thing, see how yellow it is?
Yeah, that's just, I think that's the chemical itself. It kind of changes color. Let me put a little bit more on there. As you apply it, you'll see it forms a little bit of a coating. I think that's what that is. So just apply it. Now, people have a tendency to sit here and rub it, rub the bluing in and, keep scrubbing it. And that really doesn't do you any good. Let that set for a minute. And you just keep doing this until you get the color you like. You can do, like I said, little dings and scratches. This works pretty well with. It's kind of hard to do a large area. But, I'll show you on the little drag line that it works pretty well on things like that. So they just keep coming back with the steel wool and just very, very lightly. We're just knocking that coating off like so. Okay. And I'll just apply another coat. Just keep going and you'll see it'll cover up this rust. I think a lot of people get impatient and just don't apply enough coats to get it to look really good. But if you're patient, it will work. And there's no advantage to leaving it on, like wetting it and leaving it on overnight. It's just going to dry and it's not going to give you any darker of a finish doing it that way. The way to get the darker finish is to just keep applying it. Anyway, let's see it. No, I only reheat it. I only heat it on the first pass. I saw that.
Stop reading the chat.
Well, I just looked over and I saw it pop up, and I'm like, I just reheat it. I just heat it up on the first pass.
You want to take a couple of questions while you're doing that?
Sure, yeah.
So there was a question about, would using mineral spirits be too much for degreasing?
No, that'd be fine.
And then the other one was what size steel wool is that?
It's triple aught 000, double aught, triple aught. The finest you can find is what I recommend.
And then the last one I have so far is, what about using a copper penny to remove the rust?
It has to be like a pre-63 or pre-64. And a lot of people have done it. I have never actually tried it. I just use copper or brass wool with some gun oil. If it's really deep, kind of nasty looking rust, I'll dip the brass or copper wool into like a solvent, like hoppies or some gun oil, a really light oil, and just scrub it with that, because the oil will get down in there and kind of help it'll penetrate and get down deep. And then the brass wool won't remove metal. It won't screw up whatever bluing is still there, which I think is important to preserve that as much as you can. So that's what I use. But I've heard that the old pennies work, because 64. Oh, come on. Why does it do this? The pre-64 or pre-63 pennies had a higher copper content, is my understanding. But I don't know if you can see that, but it's getting darker. It's blending in a little bit. The rust is gone. What you can polish this when you're done, and that's really where this will be a little duller than the factory bluing job. So you can polish it. You can use a little flitz or something like that. You don't want to use anything too abrasive, because it'll just take it right back off. This doesn't match the factory bluing very well. It'll look fine, but and it'll add some protection, but it doesn't go as deep. It doesn't penetrate nearly as well as the factory bluing does. You know, you'd have to totally reblue the gun. And on something like this, it just doesn't make any sense to completely refinish or restore a Model 10. There's millions of them out there. But I do it just to kind of protect the metal a little bit. So, you know, I would probably still keep going and apply a few more coats to that. And then when you're done, you hit it with the steel wool, and then you're going to rub it down with some oil and leave the oil on it for at least 24 hours and let it penetrate in there and saturate that bluing, and then wipe it off and run it. You may have to keep doing it in spots where the bluing has been worn off, because like I said, this stuff doesn't penetrate. It doesn't give you that same level of bluing that the factory bluing does, but it helps. So I'm going to do this little drag line, because this is an area where you can usually see the, I don't know if you can see the drag line on there. It's not too prominent on this gun, but so I'm going to go ahead and start by cleaning it again. Get some more naphtha. I for whatever reason, I hate guns that I hate this little drag line on revolvers. It just irritates me. I need to adjust the spring on this so that I don't get that. But they all seem to develop it after a certain amount of age. So I'll go ahead and clean that off. This is really where the torch and the Q-tips come in handy, because we're not applying bluing to everything. We're just applying it to the area that we want it. I don't want a big blotchy finish on here. So I don't think I need any steel wool on that. So I'm gonna let that dry, take a little heat. You know, you might want to remove the cylinder from the gun if you were worried about getting it all over the place. But once that's warmed up a little bit, let's grab another Q-tip. And so this, I just apply it this way, just where I want it. This is more spectacular on a gun with really good bluing on the cylinder. The bluing is pretty worn out on this, so it won't be as dramatic. But on a really nice gun with just a little bit of a drag mark on this really does a good job of kind of taking care of that. So there we go. That's set for a minute. I don't know if you can see it, but it's already disappearing. So then I'll take my steel wool and knock it off a little bit. And I'm sure there's other people who use other methods to do this, but this is what I've done for many, many years, and it works pretty well. I'm not trying to hide anything. I don't want anybody to think that, you know, I'm trying to sell them a unmolested gun or anything. I'm more worried in just the aesthetics for me, and just protecting the metal. I don't want it to develop rust and start pitting. So that's why I do it. But I'm not trying to misrepresent the gun or make it something that it isn't. That's why I rarely re-blue entire guns. One, you lose a lot of value when you refinish guns. Most people want them in the original state as much as possible, and so it doesn't make any sense. But on a newer gun that has a little bit of chatter on it or whatever, this helps. You know, I don't know, anybody that's bought a new gun and put their first little nick or ding in it, it can be heartbreaking, especially if it's a really nice gun. So there we go. Let's wipe it down. But I don't know if you can see that, but you can see that drag line is gone now. But you can also see how the surrounding metal is a little shinier where the bluing was applied. So we'd have to work a little bit to blend that in. maybe take the steel wool to the entire cylinder to get that shine, but you can see it's virtually gone now. So anyway, that's how I do that. On this GP100, this is a much nicer gun, more valuable, and it's in much better shape. Let's see, swiping and bluing, is it possible to just dab? Yep, that'll work. You can just dab it on there. It's going to show that a little bit right here.
Reading the chat.
Why? I like it. So this gun's obviously in much better shape. The factory bluing is still really good on it. It's got a few little minor flaws. This is the kind of gun that touching up the bluing on it makes more sense, since it's still in really good condition. But it has a little bit of a drag line there, and it has this little bit of it looks like a ding. So sometimes what I'll do with these, if you have a ding where you have metal, kind of a little spur or something, I'll take a jeweler's file and I'll refinish the metal as much as I can without touching the surrounding area. I'll just knock it off with a jeweler's file, just a tiny bit, just to remove the anything that's protruding, because you don't want to cut yourself on it, or you don't want to create a hot spot holding the gun. And it'll also make the little bluing repair look a lot better. So I'm going to go ahead, a little more naphtha. I'm just going to do this little corner. Nice and clean. I'll do that barrel tip too.
Oh, you're doing that? You want to answer a couple more questions?
Sure, absolutely.
So there's this one question that the cold blue that they have been using in the past require rinsing with water for about 30 seconds after applying the blue. Is the Oxbow blue substantially different?
I don't know. Let's see. I don't wipe dry. It doesn't say anything about rinsing it with water. Doesn't wipe dry and clean cloth, burnish bright with zero steel wool or finer.
And then one you kind of answered, but I'll run it up past you anyways. The touch up you're doing going to blend with the old finish on the rest of the gun?
Somewhat, and you might have to try a few different chemicals. Some do better than others. Dicropan may touch up better for some guns. I also have this stuff here, this paste, this Perma Blue paste gun blue, and it's kind of a little bit thicker than a.
You can put it back there and shade it so that we can see it, because all we saw was a white tube.
Let's see here.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
that's closer. Perma Blue.
Yeah, it's just a paste that you can apply. It works pretty well. I just, if something isn't working, I'll try a different chemical just to see if but the thing that is most important is just getting it clean. Just get it super, super clean.
So along that line, one from our great and fearless leader, alternatives to naphtha.
Acetone, rubbing alcohol, anything with degreasing properties. That fast evaporation is always helpful as well. There we go. Let that set for a minute. There's a little bit of a right down here, like that.
So how does the touch-up blend with the finish on the rest of the gun?
Pretty well. It depends on how much time you want to put into it, how many coats you want to put in it. It won't necessarily have the same sheen. The color is pretty good, but the sheen, the shininess of it usually differs. But that's why the cold bluing really doesn't work really well on great big spots where there's a lot of bluing loss, where it's not the same thing as, it's not as nice for a big repair, but let's see, we'll do another coat. Yeah. It's kind of tedious, but I'll do this before I sell a gun. I'll just touch up little areas like this, because people always want to, badmouth it. Oh, well, I see here you got some nicks, and so I'll just touch them up a little bit, kind of make them not as noticeable. Like I said, I'm not trying to hide anything. Old guns have little nicks and dings and things like that, but yeah. See, and you'll notice the color of some bluing is really, really black, and other bluing is kind of a dark purple. The color of the factory bluing differs from manufacturer to manufacturer. So, sometimes the color match won't be as good on some as it is with others. Just polish that off a little bit. But, you experiment, play around with a few different bottles or different chemicals. See what works best for the gun, your particular application. Yeah, I'm trying to blend more the texture than the color. I don't want to have a dull spot where that was repaired, but I don't know if you can see that, but there's no bare metal showing anymore. Now we'll fix this drag line a little bit. Yeah, see there's little scratches all over this thing, but this gun gets used a lot, but I try to take really good care of it because I love this thing. This and the old Security 6 are just really neat guns. And for a 357, it's pretty stout. It handles it with ease. Big, heavy framed gun. I was looking through my guns. I was trying to find one that had a little more of a ding in it that I could show you how I sand it or refinish it with a little jeweler's file, but I couldn't find anything. Thankfully, I mean, it's probably a good thing not to have guns that are all nicked up. So let that dry, heat it up. And I'm sure you could use a propane torch for this as well. I mean, we're not getting it super hot. I just like this because it's got that fine tip on it, so it makes it easier to get into. I'm not really heating up everything or stuff that I don't want to. Just the area that. Just gonna hit any of these little scratches and stuff that I see on here. Right there, right there. There we go. And you see how it's shinier where the bluing is, but that you can blend with the steel wool. You just come back and burnish it a little bit with the steel wool, and it'll blend in. Somebody's talking, but I didn't hear it. Hello?
Is there a big difference between cold bluing with chemicals and rust bluing in terms of final finish quality?
Yeah, cold bluing is not the way I would ever want to refinish a gun. It's fine for touch-ups and repairs, but it's no substitute for rebluing with a hot bluing process. Rust bluing and using real bluing salts gives you a much better result. I've only done it on. I did the trench gun because the bluing was pretty well gone on that thing, and I was doing so much work to it anyway that I just stripped it all down and rust blued it to so that it was all matching. And then I did a Colt Revolver because somebody had taken it, looked like steel wool to it. I don't know if they were attempting to refinish it, but it just looked horrible. It just, and the gun isn't worth a whole lot, so it didn't make a lot of economic sense to reblue it, but I just did it because I wanted to show the steps in how to do it. And it turned out okay. I mean, the gun had pits in it and other faults, so it was never going to be perfect, but it's better than it was, and it at least now has some protection on the metal. In fact, I'll reach over and grab it. It's over here in the safe. Let that set for a second. And once again, it's not loaded, but this is one that I stripped down to bare metal and then rust blued it. It's looking more brown on the screen, but or I think it's the light, but this thing is got several coats of rust bluing on it. And you can see pitting here on this inspection plate. So there's not much you can do about the pitting. Replacing that plate is a nightmare because it's custom fit and really difficult to get one to fit as precisely as they did from the factory.
And is it, I don't know if anybody asked this one yet. Is it possible to just kind of dab it a little bit rather than actual swiping?
Yeah, I mean, you could apply it like that. Sure.
Okay.
As long as you get a Q-tip and get it where you want it, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't need to be rubbed. You know, you can just dab it if that's just a little spot.
Okay.
I rub it because it tends to kind of blend it a little bit better.
Yeah.
Into the surrounding area, but you don't have to. Let that sit for a minute. Just come back and you just keep working it, and it's really worthwhile on guns that have a really nice finish with just a few flaws. That's really where this stuff pays dividends. It just makes the gun just look that little extra bit better. And then when you put oil on it, it will also help blend it in a little bit. So I don't know if you can, the drag line's starting to disappear, but it's still there on this thing. But it's not as prominent as it was. It just takes time. Time.
Did you have a question, Lonnie?
Yeah, actually, there are a couple in there. So there's this one. One question was they've got a couple old Stevens single shot shotguns that are starting to show their age. And what should they consider when thinking about rebluing? They're simple and still operate quite well. Not an investment gun, but he wouldn't mind making them look a little nicer. Your thoughts?
Oh, rust blew it. It worked pretty well. It should be pretty easy to tear it down. And if you go on the club's website, there's a whole series of videos I did from beginning to end in the rust blowing process. And all you need is some steel wool and sandpaper. You're going to end up sanding the gun. And you're going to end up with, I think, about a 300 grit sandpaper. You don't want to get too much of a heavy grit. And you're going to want to be really careful around these roll marks. You don't want to sand those out or flatten the edges of them. So you got to be careful with that. That's one of the bigger risks of when you sand the gun. But you know, it's more prep than anything. Let me grab this is what I use from Brownell's classic rust blue. And then once you get it super clean and the metal spotless, then you just apply that stuff. And here in Oregon, I don't worry about humidity. we have plenty of it. So I just leave it in the garage and it'll rust overnight. It ends up with kind of a velvety, kind of reddish rust on it all over. It'll be consistently the same coating everywhere. And then you take that and use what's called a carding wheel or a carding brush, which is, let me get my carding brush here. It looks like just a wire brush, but it's super fine. It's almost like thinner than hair. And if you put one of these on like a grinder, the wheel, you can put your hand on it. It won't do any damage. But this will not. Before that stage, though, you take it, and once it's in that red rust stage, then you boil it. You boil it in a tank, just deionized water, and let it boil for, about 10, 12 minutes. You boil it until it turns black. Once that rust turns black, then you remove it, dry it off, and card it, and then you keep doing that until you get the color that you want. But that's the rust blowing process, and it works really well. It gives you a really consistent finish as long as you did the prep work. If you prepped it properly and were fastidious about it, it comes out pretty nice. My shotgun came out really nice. It looks new in a lot of places.
And then the last question I have so far is, let me get there, is would you ever attempt this touch-up bluing on scandium?
Oh, I don't know. I would have to look into what they used to blue it in the first place. I'd try it. I'd try it in an inconspicuous area. See, it's someplace like, the back of the frame somewhere but if it'll take bluing, I don't know what process they use to blue it, but if it'll take bluing, this should work. Hold on a second. Get all these steel wool off. But anyway, you can see it's starting to disappear. So that's how I do it. That's pretty much it. And then, you can take some oil. I'll throw a little bit of oil on this. Some Huppies gun oil. And once it's got the shade that you want, just apply some oil to it and let it soak in overnight. Don't remove the oil until tomorrow. You want it to penetrate deep into that layer of bluing, like so. Just set it aside. And where's the Model 10? We apply some oil to the barrel here. There we go. So that's pretty much it. That's how I do cold blue repairs. Like I said, it really primarily just small areas, small touch-ups, not great big repairs. If you had a huge spot, all the bluing was worn off here, you could take cold bluing and try to blend it as much as you could. You might get some decent results, but you might not. You end up with blotchiness from applying, maybe apply it in multiple coats in different directions might mitigate some of that. But I haven't had as good a luck with great big areas as I have just touching up small sections of bare metal. So anyway, that's pretty much it. That's what I do to touch up bluing.
So one other question, Scott, is how is parkerizing different than bluing, and can we do it yourself as a parkerized job?
Parkerizing is a completely different process, and it gives you a completely different finish. It gives you that kind of matte finish. It's the process, the method of doing it is similar to rust bluing, in that you have big tanks full of parkerizing solution, but it's not. I think you'd spend a whole lot of money on getting set up to do it. Just to do, unless you're going to do a bunch of guns, I would just send it out. There's a whole lot of upfront costs in setting up to do parkerizing. If you had a whole bunch of old milsurp guns that you wanted to restore, then that makes sense. But I think otherwise I would just send it out. Rust bluing is pretty cheap and pretty easy for the home hobbyists to do themselves, but parkerizing would be spending a lot of money.
And that's all the questions I have. Danny, do you have anything?
I do not see any more. Let me double check. Nope, no more.
Spurious remarks and insults.
Lots of thank yous.
Lots of thank yous. Yes.
Anyway, well, that's what I do. It works well for me. And if you have any questions, hit me up. But once again, I would try either Oxbow Blue or the Dicrapan. Maybe order a bottle of each. I don't remember how much they cost. They weren't terribly expensive. And just give them a try and see which one works best for you. Like I said, the Oxbow Blue, I've just had better luck with it. And preheating the metal has given me just much better results than just applying it cold. I don't know what if it's a chemical reactor. Well, I don't know what the difference is, but it certainly helps a lot.
I think that puts us at the end of our time, right?
All right.
I got about 10 minutes, but yeah.
Well, yeah.
Right.
Nobody else has any questions.
I don't see anything else.
Danny, do we know what we got next week, or
I think next week?
No, Scott. Let me say it. I've been gone.
I'm sorry.
I got it all queued up, so I didn't bungle it. Next week we're gonna do an Enfield number 4, Mark 1. This is England's primary battle rifle from World War II. This historic piece takes a .303 cartridge. You'll receive an email about registration tomorrow. Or you can go log into the membership portal right now and register for next week.
And Scott's showing us a little teaser.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yep. I will be camping next week, so I will be broadcasting live from a campground. It should be interesting, taking a gun apart in a public campground. But it's in Estacada, Oregon, where everybody's armed, so I'm not worried about it. I might do it inside the trailer, but all right.
Let me also chime in for a second. For many months, we've been talking about doing some more social distance learning experience panels. I'm looking for some folks that, since it's Pride Month, we want to focus on LGBTQ, identifying individuals and their experience as gun owners. And then also we want to have a newer gun owners panel as well. So if anybody's interested in participating in those, you can message me on Discord, Facebook, or email me at lgcevents@theliberalgunclub.com. I'm also about to send out an email to the membership asking for contributors for that as well. And I understand that sometimes these are sensitive topics, and if anybody has security concerns, we definitely don't require you to have your camera on, and we can use a different name for you and things like that. We're more than willing to accommodate you. We just want to hear your experience and how it's different from these average old white guys.
And young white guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, there aren't any young ones here.
No.
Hey.
I know a few. Lonnie is young in spirit.
No, he's not.
Are we still streaming? Otherwise,
I'll do it.
All right. Well,
thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you.
Thanks all. See you in the pub.
See you online.
All right. Bye.